I'm Kelly Thomas, and welcome to Gnarly Metal After Hours. This is a new show here on gnarly101.com. It's a live show that's on air one Saturday a month, and it features conversations with radio announcers, musicians, and fans about radio, rock, and records from the 80s. It's a rock and talk show that starts at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. I want to take a moment and introduce my lovely guest. Her name is Lady V. Lady V is an entrepreneur. She's a show producer. She has a show on Facebook. She also is a video model, and she is a life coach. Lady V, welcome to our show.
Ooh, thank you for the invite.
Yeah.
You know, it's taken me forever to get here, but I am so grateful to finally be here. It's so amazing to meet you, and it's so amazing to finally see Paul. Because like we were saying, it's been a minute, huh?
Yeah, it has. Actually, PD Paul is here with us as well. And for those of you who listen to my show, Gnarly Metal, which is on every Friday night from 4 to 6 p.m. Mountain Time, it's a show specifically for headbangers and people who love heavy metal. But I do make reference to Paul on a somewhat regular basis because he and I have had some pretty amazing conversations about music from the 80s. I mean, that's what we do here at gnarly101.com, and that's what we do well. But I refer to him as PD Paul, so PD for Program Director Paul. And as I understand, Paul, you and Lady V have had a long-time friendship and the opportunity to work together in the past. So I just want to kind of check in with the two of you and see, where did that friendship begin? What were you doing? Lady V, what were you doing? How did it happen that the two of you had your career paths cross?
Okay, so, real quick.
Oh, yeah.
What's going on out there? We all know.
I'm telling you, folks. Okay, just so that you know, in case you don't, we're based here in Colorado Springs, and there is a air show going on today. Now, this is a heavy military town. Colorado Springs is, with a lot of different bases, Air Force, Army, you name it. We've got everything. And so they've got a big air show going on down at the airport right now. And so the Blue Angels are here, and they're flying around up there. You can hear the F-18s, but there's a lot of other things going on. So if you hear that, you know what? Just live vicariously and say, well, I saw the Blue Angels flying by. They're going by right now, even as we speak. So, yeah, it's what it is. Anyway, we met, and we were talking about that earlier, Lady V and I, from the radio shopping show. And that's where I started my career in radio, was with the radio shopping show back in 2009, when it initially had kicked off. I did some different things, started a talk show, moved off to that. And so that's what I was doing when she came to the studios over there for SoCo Radio. Yeah, it was SoCo Radio. And she was working with the folks at the radio shopping show, and then you were over on Blazin 98.5 FM for a while, and then after everything fell apart like radio's doing, on air radio, that's why we went from 101.3 FM to being 101 online only, because it is too tough. They're dying. And Black Friday did not end last week.
No.
There was more layoffs this last week from iHeartRadio, and these were like SVPs and
shout out
senior people.
Now that, and I didn't mean to interrupt you,
go ahead.
but shout out to Kevin, and that was Kachiba. He was one of the ones that was
over
let
at the
go of.
Beat.
Yes,
Oh, wow.
and he had been around for a while because I think he started like in '98 and then went to the Beat. But yeah, so a lot of them were laid off, and it's devastating when it happens. But yeah, he's telling the truth. That's how we met.
Yeah,
Paul
and
and
it's just sad, but it's true. That's the nature of radio. So that's why we just keep on keeping on.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge part of it, and especially the aspect of being live is something that's a little unique to radio. It wasn't, 10, 15 years ago, but it is becoming increasingly possible that the radio stations you're listening to that are AM, FM, traditional AM, FM radio stations have people who voice track or record shows, and some of them I will venture to say probably still do have live talent on the air. But keeping consistent with with the Black Friday that we're talking about, one of the unfortunate aspects is when any business, I think, is having challenges, one of the things that they make a choice to do is to downsize personnel, the number of employees they have. And radio is no different, and it's no exception. So you will perhaps be hearing more shows that are voice tracked, so you'll have an on-air talent voice tracking for a number of different radio stations as opposed to just one, and fewer people doing live work, which is one of the things I love here about Gnarly, is the opportunity to get back on the air and, you know, have a chance to take it all in and to enjoy everything that I'm sorry, the car just distracted me completely.
I know.
It's noisy over here, but it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, it is. And just as I've mentioned before, we do everything we can to kind of make sure we have a soundproofed environment so things are acoustically pleasing, but there are some things we just can't manage. Lady V, enough of me talking about me, because that's not what this show is about. This show is about you, so I want to turn things over to you real quickly. Tell us in detail about the number of things that you do as an entrepreneur. You're self-employed, but you're creating opportunities for yourself, and there may be people out there listening who take inspiration from hearing your story. How do you manage your time?
You know what? That is a tough question, because I'm still mastering that with a lot that I do. First of all, I do want to say that I was a teenage mother and have some grandkids now, so you know they're a huge part of my life, and that's part of the reason why I did become an entrepreneur, and then I was able to stumble across radio, and eventually through SoCo Radio I was able to get my own radio show, and I did 80s and all the hip hop and R&B of the 80s and the old school, even going way back. So, you know, I mean, radio has always been a passion to me, whether I listened to it or whether I myself did my own type of radio show. But for me, it was music, and we all were devastated when that particular radio fell apart, you know, and in doing that, at first I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this had happened. I was like in a world of shock. I don't know if Paul as well was in shock, but I was in shock. No, you've been through it before.
See them come, you see them go. And the writing was on the wall. So it was what it was.
Yeah, it is difficult. It's part of a transition, I think. First of all, let me say congratulations on being a grandmother. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing to experience, and I'm glad for you that you have that kind of love and enjoyment in your life. And the reason I mention that is because I have a daughter who is raised in a generation which is very different than the generation I was raised in. For us people who were raised in the 80s, I feel like we were, in a sense, raised on radio. And I know that sounds a little bit cliche, but it was a habit. It was how we listened. It was how we got our music. And there's a lot of opportunity for people to listen in different ways now, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I think it makes being in radio and having radio stations maintain a level of viability a little bit more challenging, because there are different levels of competition and people have a different habit in how they listen. When you were on the air, Lady V, do you feel that people were still tuning in to a traditional AM/FM radio, or did they have the opportunity to listen to you online as well?
I did a lot of lives, so then they were able to, and then I would do such things, and I tell people who are in radio, you know, use your platforms as well. So I would use all the platforms, Facebook, and I would get the music from YouTube and put it there, and then they could hear it as well. So then it became kind of audio visual.
Yeah. And as an entrepreneur, I'm guessing social media is certainly a part of your business model. Where can people find you on social media?
I have a lot of pages. So it's a numerous amount, but being that we're here and I love you all, I'm just going to give you all my personal Facebook. So it's my name, Vina Valdez, Valdez, and usually on there, because I'm kind of lazy, so I'll throw all my links on one page, because being an entrepreneur, you got to kind of, like how you say, you have to be able to time manage, because if you don't, then you get nothing done.
Yeah.
And I've been very guilty of sometimes getting one thing done over here, something not done over here, something over here done, and, you know, over here. So you have to learn to be able to get to the most important. And, me as a life coach, I teach on how you do that, because it's not easy.
Yeah.
Because it comes from personal experience. Hey, I've been through this, and this is one of the ways. But, people can figure out the way that's going to work for them. That's where life coaching for me is unique, because everybody's going to be different. They're not going to be all the same, which,
Yeah, and I think it's important for people who are entrepreneurs to have a social media presence. But in general, it's trying to find that work-life balance. And I would imagine as a life coach, that's something you probably work with your clients on, is establishing that based on their unique circumstances and what they have going on in their life, where they may want to make sure that they have some time for family, they have some time for socializing, they also might want to have some time for creativity, but then also time for relaxation. And how do you manage that with making sure whatever it is you're doing allows you to have the bills paid as well?
That's tough. It's very, very challenging. So being an entrepreneur, I come across a lot of stuff that happens unexpectedly, you know, and sometimes you just don't expect certain things, like us with the whole the sound effects, and things just happen. And I just have reminded myself to just, no matter what the distractions are, just keep going and just start picking the most important things that are going to get me where I need to go first, and not feeling guilty if I have to tell somebody no, because sometimes you have to say no. And me being an empathetic type of a person, somebody with sympathy, I have a hard time with no, because I'm like, oh, maybe I could just squeeze them in here, or right here. And sometimes you have to do that, because if not, then you can drive yourself crazy and get nothing done.
Yeah, most definitely. As promised, I'm going to turn things over right now to the lovely and talented Joan Jett, and we'll hear a little bit of music.
Ooh, yeah, that goes way back. I even had her hairstyle, girl.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I gotta post a
awesome.
picture of that.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I had the opportunity to see Joan Jett in concert, and I've said this on a number of occasions before. If you have the chance to see her in concert, don't miss out. She put on a fantastic show. So let's have some Joan Jett. Yeah, that's right. You're listening to Gnarly101.com. We bring you the very best of the 80s, and this show is called Gnarly Metal After Hours. My name's Kelly Thomas, and I'm joined in the studio today by PD Paul and our lovely guest, Lady V, who's here to talk with us a little bit about the 80s, which is what we do here and what we enjoy doing, taking everybody back in time a little bit, one song at a time. Do you have a favorite movie or TV show from the 80s, or do you, opposite of that, have some that you found that you couldn't stand?
You know what? And that is like a question that is going to be easy and unbelievable to answer. So I didn't grow up with television. I grew up in a very strict home. My father was a minister, an apostolic minister, and absolutely we didn't have no television. So I would go to my cousin's house, sneak over there, and then I would watch, TV over there. So I really liked like Three's Companies, but I think they were more like 70s and going into the 80s. So definitely that. And which I liked was Saved by the Bell. Oh my God, I had a crush on Mario.
Of course.
You know what I mean? And I follow him. No, his real self on Facebook. So it's cool. And it's what's so cool about our generation, seeing I'm getting off the topic, is we do not age.
Oh,
I mean, I've seen
but thank you.
No, I don't feel our age group ages.
Right. So from a physical standpoint, I think we are a little bit or a lot more resilient than our parents' generation. I don't know. We still maintain that joy of living, of life, of youthfulness. We have that we come back to, and it seems like as we're getting older, we haven't moved into that place that has that expectation that we need to behave in a certain way. We still kind of have that spirit of fun with us. So yeah, I think it's a really good observation.
Well, we would put outside.
Yes.
I remember going outside, because you didn't sit in the house and watch no non-existent TV, or you didn't listen to the radio and stay indoors. You would probably do some household chores, and then it's okay, out. I don't know if that happened to you, but that happened to me.
Yeah, it most definitely did. Yeah, there was an expectation that we would get out and have some fresh air, and we would get out and have time to play. And television was allowed in our house, but we had guidelines around how much and how often we watched. So there were, when we talk about 80s TV shows, there were shows that, there were specific times that we could watch TV, and during those times, there were specific shows that we would watch. So the TV shows from the 80s that I recall might be a little bit different than what other people recall, simply because the amount of time I had to watch TV was limited. But now, it's a whole different story.
Ooh, well, now TV is so accessible. Internet, like internet radio, and it's the new wave. So nowadays, kids can just get on their phone and watch whatever, and some of these kids be watching adult stuff. Like my little grandson, he's 6, and I'm like, what are you watching? Because before I know it, he's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Or he's, on TikTok, or he's on somewhere, and I'm like, wow. That's the difference, I think, between us and them, is they're like there's more access to things of that.
In addition, there's more content too, so definitely more access, but there's more for them to choose from than there was. I mean, I didn't want to sit in the house and watch soap operas during the day. Now, first and foremost, my parents wouldn't have allowed it, but they had zero appeal to me, no interest. And yet I have friends of mine who loved, that was a way that they maybe bonded with their mom, was to hang out and fold laundry with their mom while they were watching Days of Our Lives. And it wasn't my cup of tea, but there's more variety and more access, and I think there's simply more of it out there for people to consume regardless of the age. There seems to be something for everyone now in the way of TV, movies, things of that nature. So how about bands? Are there specific bands that you really enjoyed? Now you chose 4 songs. I'm going to backtrack real quickly. So each time I do this show, I invite the guests who come on my show to put together a number of songs that they enjoyed, that they liked, songs that had meaning to them or for them, or just something they really enjoyed listening to in the 80s. So we put 4 songs together that'll be coming up in a few minutes. But before we get to those 4 songs, are there any bands, Lady V, that you really enjoyed listening to that, I don't know, maybe there was just one specific song, or they're bands who you have a music collection of? Maybe you collected their cassettes or vinyl, or as you got older, maybe you purchased some of their stuff on CDs.
Talk about that. So, we didn't have TV in our home, so I would sneak the radio. So Van Halen, that was one. When I got a little bit older, because like Aerosmith was like more like 80s, 90s than it was Aerosmith. Definitely Bon Jovi,
Oh, yeah.
I had crushes on like the Bad Boys, so it's like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
The long hair, all that stuff. That's crazy how you'll have a crush like that, and you're like, what was I thinking? But that's what it was about back then.
Well, and especially, too, with the introduction of MTV. I mean, when MTV came out, we not only had a way of listening to music, but then there was that visual component. Yeah, exactly. What about concerts? Were there any concerts that you went to in the 80s? Any particular bands that you had a chance to check out and see in concert that you either enjoyed or that you were disappointed by?
Ooh, so, I lived in Pueblo. I was born in Grand Junction, but, lived in Pueblo as a child. So, as you know, the State Fair comes down. Yeah. So I was lucky to go to a Whitesnake concert, and that was just so cool. I was not very old. I probably shouldn't have been there, but I was a teenage mom, and so at 17 I already had some kids, 2 kids, so that was a way to get out and just get over there and get wild. And in the 80s we had our hair all up, and the lion's mane, you know what I'm talking about, sunflower all the way around.
Yeah.
So it was a good way to get out and just enjoy myself. So I did see a Whitesnake concert.
Excellent.
And that was like amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, and you touched on the thing that I wanted to talk about next, and that was the fashion and style in the 80s. So I definitely had what I call a hairspray habit.
Oh yeah, that Aquanet girl. You know what I'm talking about.
I do. And I think about it now and I'm like, my God, I was breathing in all of this stuff on a regular basis because it wasn't just enough to apply it once a day. You know, you had to keep.
Make sure it's stiff enough there and it ain't moving nowhere.
Yep. Exactly. What else? What did you find, Lady V, that you maybe enjoyed or didn't enjoy for fashion or styles in the 80s?
You know what I'm going to tell you is, and I'm off topic again, but that's just the way it is. We'll go back to that. But just anything you love, don't throw it away. Because you know what? Those 80s are right back in again. So you know what? All those tight-fitting jeans. That I like those, and you know, just going back to the thin heels again, because you know that for a while we were in the platforms.
Yeah.
So you know, it seems like it's kind of going back to that, but you know, it just recycles over and over, and I see people thinking they got a brand new style. I'm like, no, we didn't have that. You know, in the 80s, that outfit you got on, you know, especially you know how the rock stars would have like the tattered arms and all of that. It did a lot of that to my stuff.
And it's interesting you say that because there's one item in my wardrobe that has remained in my wardrobe since the 80s. Now, only recently have I worn it outside of the house, but in the 80s, it was the torn jeans and the ripped jeans, and all of a sudden they're back in style.
And they think that this is brand new. We done seen it already a couple times.
Exactly. Well, you are listening to Gnarly Metal After Hours. I'm Kelly Thomas. My very lovely and talented guest is Lady V, and we're about to get into some music that she's selected, and I know it's music that you'll enjoy as well. So the first band is Guns N' Roses.
Guns N' Roses.
Yeah. Any special memories, anything specific about the song that we picked that you might want to share with our listeners?
You know, I was a teen mom, so when some of these songs came out, I was between the age of 16, 17, 18, so a lot of them bring me memories of during that time, like the earlier days of my kid's dad. He was a rocker.
Today, my guest has been Lady V, who is an entrepreneur. She is a show producer, a video model, and a life coach, and she and I have been talking about the 80s and playing some 80s music for your listening pleasure. I am going to turn things over to her before we go and let her tell us how we can find her on social media or on the internet, and how can people support you?
You can find me on Facebook, and usually I use Facebook more than anything because then I can put a lot of the links up, and because I'm lazy, that part. But you can find me on Facebook, Vina Valdez, and of course you'll see a picture of me, so hopefully you'll know that's the right one. And on there you'll be able to get links to my virtual life coaching as well as the media things that I do. I am producing a home media show with a lot of visual type of content, so definitely go on my pages and you can find me there. Angels on Earth video models, that's on YouTube. That's where I go and I search for women that don't feel pretty, but they're beautiful and they just need, that lift to see themselves in a different light. So I do makeovers for them. Kelly.
Yes.
You're going to be one of my models, right?
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Absolutely. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yes, that's my way of giving back. So, yeah, I'm going to love doing you all up and doing a video of you of one of these songs that you pick.
Oh.
So watch that. It'll be coming. Of course, I will be tagging you and, of course, Gnarly and Paul. Paul, thank you for inviting me. Look at, I'm taking over again. Tell me not to do it, you guys. That's not okay.
Thanks for being here. We've enjoyed it.
Well, again, our thanks to Lady V, and on behalf of PD Paul and myself, I want to say thanks. Wish everybody a great weekend, peace, and keep it right here for the best of the 80s. Right now, it's Depeche Mode.